Boom, we are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. It's gorgeous out here in the jungle. I'll show you at the end, so be sure you stick around so I can show you how ridiculously nice it is right now. But we're going to be going over Bitcoin. I want to start off in our Bitcoin charts by kind of ascertaining like kind of the longer story that we've been through to get here. I think it's so important. So with that in mind, there it is. There we go. Here's Bitcoin on the long-term chart. So for those of you that are new to the Bear family, we like studying the Wyckoff method. One of the reasons being is we get the opportunity to find these really long accumulation ranges, signal the breakout, and enjoy the bull market. Now, for those of you that are new and joining late, maybe you bought up at 60,000, maybe you've bought here at 35,000, you've effectively entered the market in the middle. Now, we could make some arguments that maybe it's over, but let's just for a moment look at the past as a more important part to understand the future. So a lot of people jump in the markets thinking they're going to get rich quickly. You know, the Dogecoin millionaires was probably a clear sign that we were at an intermediary top. Now, Bitcoin itself is a store of value, a means of transaction, global borderless payments, is actually very powerful, and that's the value of Bitcoin, right? The price can change and fluctuate wildly, just as we've seen, but ultimately what we want to do is look for these really long accumulation patterns and the breakouts that come afterwards. Now, if you're entering the market in your mid-market move, the downside is you may have to endure some downside for the long-term story to take effect. And ultimately and ideally, you want to have a macro perspective anytime you're making an investment, because even though you can make money trading, most people don't. And more importantly, you're probably better off doing what you're already good at and have been doing to generate revenue up to this point, and adopting a strategy of investing that runs alongside your already revenue generating businesses, right? This is not usually a way to try to get rich. It's a way to build wealth. And that's a very different function than like rich in your pocketbook for day-to-day spending versus wealth in your portfolio for usually your lifetime. So back in 2017, had you bought, let's say at the top at around $13,000 and you had to endure the rest of the bear market, as long as you kept repeating an entry cycle, you did actually really well. You could shave off some profits at the top, near some of these tops here, even where we are today. And this is the important part of the function. A lot of the private bear family has been following us for years, and they were able to make entries all the way along this middle line and are still significantly in profit. Let's use Ethereum as another great example. Here's our long-term chart drawn for Ethereum. As you can see, once we broke above the top of the regression line here, we've fallen now back into the middle of the regression lines here. So both Bitcoin and Ethereum are both in between their two major automatic rally and buying climax regression lines. So there's a lot of risk potentially here for someone new in the market, because we could come back down and retest lower areas and maybe even enter a bear market. Now, again, if you like my channel, you will have noticed we exited a bunch of Ethereum at around 4 grand and a bunch of Bitcoin around 56,000. I was in a really heavy play with Serum that definitely drew me down a lot more than I would have ever liked, but that's okay. This is the nature of the beast. Heads I win, tails I don't lose that much. It just really depends on how much you're okay with losing, I guess, or at least in paper terms. So again, we can use Ethereum as another great example. You can go back and look at all of our videos between July through October, where we were making big entries and taking long positions back here. This area here, because we had this clear signal that the bull market was starting. Well, where did that signal come from? It came from a Wyckoff accumulation range. It came from this long accumulation range here with our two reaccumulation ranges that took up as your SOS and your backup phase, and then this massive move outwards. So we used the Wyckoff range over a period of like 900 days to get really good data on when the bull market would start. Now, claiming when the bull market is going to end exactly is a much more difficult process, and I think that there are clear signs usually more so in what people are doing, less so in the market itself. When we had Dogecoin millionaires, we're like, okay, that's probably near some type of top, even though the bull market might not be over. Now, in previous market cycles, when we've seen these larger accumulation patterns, like let's say that this is now an accumulation pattern for Ethereum, we usually get a big SOS and an LPS of some kind before moving into the final movement of the bull market. Now, because we're up so high, if you're new, any position you take here has a relative risk to the downside. Whereas many of the Bear family who have been around with us for the last 2 to 3 years, we have an extraordinary amount of room to buffer us between where we started and where we are today, still up almost 500 to 600%, at least from the exit of the previous trading range. So we go back here, we look, we go, okay, well, you know, we've been studying these accumulation ranges and trading ranges for quite some time, enough to have our own version of these schematics already written up and drawn out. And we like to study them on a daily basis. Now, you get intermediary moments where we can study. So let's go over that right now. And then we'll go over the rest of the tokens I have at the top of the address here. I would just like to finish this for the moment today. So if you notice the screen, the way it started, let's go here. We had a beautiful chart drawn up by Glasswalker, one of our private members. And what we're watching here is a difficult portion, right? So first off and foremost, reaccumulations and redistribution can look very similar all the time. It's one of the most difficult aspects. It's actually much, much easier to get in at the beginning of the bull market and enjoy the ride and get out anywhere near the top and do much better than it is to like get in here and get out for an extra 2x, right? Let's assume Bitcoin's going to go to $120,000 to $150,000. Well, that's still a significant amount of upside, but there's a lot of risk on the table. Again, remembering when we have these long-term playbooks that we're trying to attach to, when you get here in the middle of the market, you're really setting yourself up for potential failure and your success is quite limited. So you need to start focusing on the macro perspectives. That means thinking, well, fucking awesome. I'm actually excited about the bear market because that may offer me 2 to 3 years of an accumulation cycle where I can just buy on a monthly or quarterly basis based off your own revenue generating businesses. That's how you win this game, period. So as we get into the minutia, what we're doing is we're studying, we're always trying to learn more, we're increasing our level of and chances of success by doing that. So right now we are in a trading range. Now, if we go back to our private group here, let's go into live trading, I believe, yes, here we go. This is a nice chart Glasswalker drew up. I really like this. This is comparing 3 of our schematics. So again, we're comparing, I actually think it's probably closer to a falling wedge pattern than it is a perfect channel, but he's got it drawn as a channel here. Both make sense to me. See here, I've got it as a forming what appears to be a wedge, and you can see this if we throw in the candles here as well. You can see that we have these candles wicks down into the wedge movement itself. Now again, this is the thing about pattern recognition. We could bump it up here. Either way, we're getting into some really key moments, right? So it's very likely that what we do is we come back down and test into a spring within the bottom and move upwards. I do believe we are still bullish. I think that this is just going to take another month probably to really draw out. But we want to be aware that, again, for anyone that's new to this ecosystem, recognizing that we are really high up based off our internal entries. Most of the bear family, like 90% of them, have been here for a long time, made great entries. And this little bit of buffer room, if we come down to 20K, doesn't really bother any of us that much. Most of us took exits around the $56,000 mark. And even though I've accumulated a bit more back at this price, there's still room for downside and I'm being patient, right? But ultimately, it's this macro perspective that really wins the game day over day over day, because let's say we are back here on the left-hand side and the bull market is over. Well, as long as you recognize that if you go, let's say the 11th of every month, you just make entries, you spend an amount of money that you're willing to sit on for the next 3 to 5 years, you are already starting a strategy that could do extraordinarily well for yourself. You just need to be patient and understand that the value and the nature of these technologies can change the world and change the way we do finance, right? So that's the value proposition. The price is almost irrelevant at that point. But we know that we are in an area of risk. It says, it's very clear in the chart here. This is a risky area. We are up very high compared to where we took most of our entries. Period. That's the end of the story, right? So even though we're looking at a potential upside here for Bitcoin, the risk to reward relationship is skewed a little bit. So let's take another look and go back. So Glassnode is one of the ways we like to measure this data. The other day we were quite excited because we saw a bunch of Bitcoin leave the market, and that Bitcoin got tossed right back into the market, and then it started being accumulated and moved off as well. So we do see that there are larger entities accumulating Bitcoin. There's a few ways to look at this. Again, we'll just kind of repeat the process. It's a day over day like meditation. Here you can see the reserve risk of Bitcoin. Now, down here in the green is like an amazing place to be able to buy. Over the last 3-4 years, if you were buying Bitcoin anywhere when we were in the green here, whether it was 3,000, whether it was 9,000, these are all areas of accumulation. And we can see that on the charts when we go out to the long time frames, whether it's an Ethereum or Bitcoin, we can see that almost the entirety of 2019 to 2020 was an area of accumulation, right? So think about that. Every month, let's say you spent $300, you were buying like 1 or 2 Ethereum every month for the last 2 years. You know, that could be 150 Ethereum for you at a fairly modest job as a taxi driver, right? So you don't need to be rich to play this game. You just need to be consistent the same way you would by going to the gym and understanding that the area where the price is low is where people think it's boring, but that's why understanding the value of your investment is so important. So back to the reserve risk ratio here for Bitcoin. We're actually in a fairly low area of risk. We're not in the, like, again, if we were in the green right now, this is like a screaming buy. Could we come back down to 20 grand and enter, or I guess, yeah, 20 grand and enter into a screaming buy area? Yes, it's a there's a potential for that. But more importantly, unless you understand the macro perspective of this game, I think you're setting yourself up for losses and failure. Do not use leverage. Do not use futures contracts unless you're extremely talented and have a lot of money to play with, because then it can work to your advantage. You can buffer any of the downside. But if you cannot, you're most likely just going to lose your money. And what you could have been doing is, again, just taking simple strategies of accumulation and actually winning this game. Okay, so quickly we'll look at the rest of the market. Wu Trade had a really nice return back to the bottom of its rising channel and then turned around very quickly. It'll be interesting to see if we get more strength out of this. I'm really watching the rest of the market to see where there's strength. Rolling over to 1 inch. 1 inch just added some cool features. So for those of you that are new to our channel, please go follow us on Twitter. Oh, there we go. There's the share from Freddy Octopus, our dear private member Glasswalker, who drew this one up. Nice work on that one, Glasswalker. Wait, hold on. It was 1 inch I wanted to look at. Jeez, I have too many of these open. One of these, I swear, is 1 inch, guys. None of them. Okay. I swear, let's start this over again here. We'll go back. We'll go to the profile. Follow Arcane Bear. Soul Rise, yeah, check them out too. Avalanche, big fans of this. Yes, here we go. So 1 inch added a limit order feature, which is super valuable. I mean, Uniswap kind of made a joke of themselves from the V3 upgrade. They're like, yeah, V3 upgrade coming. And it was like somehow not as functional or something. It just didn't appear as functional. So 1 inch making some moves here, adding a limit order, again, which means that you can, instead of just buying at whatever price it's at, you can actually set a buy ahead of time and wait for that to trigger, which is obviously a nice feature in an automated market maker. Again, and just for comparison side, remember, ladies and gentlemen, these are our venture capital plays. That our goal here is to know one particular key function. And let's write it out on the screen. Heads, I win. Tails, I don't lose much. This is a quote from Monesh Prabhai. And one of the reasons why I love this is that as a venture capitalist, one of the things we want to recognize is that if we're playing this game, we want to almost always focus on what is going to yield the highest result with the least amount of risk on the table, right? So whatever I'm willing to sit on and wait with 1 inch here is a decent entry. So again, remember, I take that idea of like once a month targets. I add whatever I'm willing to not pay attention to, and I lean into my venture capital plays. If for some reason I feel that 1 inch were to like get dropped off the table, I would probably just let it go to zero, because tails, I don't lose much, is the guiding light of this thesis. I mean, you could almost go, hey Monish, I think you got it wrong. You should go. Let's not get everybody excited and go heads, I win. Go tails, I don't lose much. Heads, I win. Right? And you almost want to lead with the strategy of tails, I don't lose much, and then whatever you win is an upside. So keep this in mind. This is an extraordinarily valuable quote, I think, to understand any good venture capitalist perspective, which is that the risk to reward relationship is always in favor of the reward, and the risk is limited. It's limited to the downside of what I'm willing to absolutely lose in that play. That means, just like with Ethereum, had I bought at the top, and I consistently made entries, I was willing to lose whatever I put in here to be right later on in the future. And that's a really key core strategy, and it can be developed over time to be extraordinarily successful. Could 1 inch go to zero? Yeah, sure. Anything could. Ethereum could still technically go to zero. So we want to make sure that we're limiting our risk every time. When Ethereum shoots up to these really high prices, well, we take all of our principal entries out. We take usually 3 to 5 years of operating capital out, and we go, great, let's see what happens next. Because it's always about this sentiment. Tails, I don't lose much. Heads, I win. And if you get that, you really ingrain this idea of asymmetry into any of your plays, you will do well. So Lana here, again, not too dissimilar to Wu Trade, a nice, huge 100% move back up to the top of the trading range. And we started to turn back around. Again, this is not super exciting to see in the rest of the marketplace, but hey, Jimbo Jambo, that's the way things go. Again, we're really waiting for some type of confirmation from Bitcoin here in this particular trading range. And I think we're going to get it. Again, I think that this will probably lead into July, and before August, we're kind of out of the range and moving on into a bullish indicator. Mark, which is another one we've added to our venture capital plays. This is the supply elastic stablecoin, which means that as the market cap of benchmark grows, they increase or decrease the liquidity of the supply to try to keep the price as stable as possible. And as you can see here, there is stability moving into the price since its inception. So that we're looking at things like benchmark to be used in protocols like Mercurial. Right, so here's Mercurial. We got pushed down below the trading range and have subsequently followed. I'm still a huge fan of Mercurial. It's gonna stay that way. Again, if you check out their DevNet, you have this really cool test version of how to trade tokens between one another. I haven't connected my wallet yet, but very smooth, very easy to use interface. I think that they've done a great job, and with what Solana is building in their niche ecosystem, definitely stoked on those bets after time. Okay, so what are the next ones we want to go over? Oh yeah, Serum. I got pushed down hard in this play. This is probably one of the most expensive late plays we made. So I was going really hard into Serum here. And then I actually even went to double down around here and then just got basically, well, we're in the negative, we could say, on this play. But again, I've got a long-term mindset here. We're basically back near the bottom. There's only so much lower we can go. So I'm just chilling. Avalanche is another great example of this. You know, most of our early entries for Avalanche was down near $1 to $3. This is why venture capital can be so powerful. I thought for sure we were going to see further market movement, so I added to my positions. I was averaged in on my second position around 20 bucks. And again, on that one, I'm down, right? So the venture capital play we have to always start here. Tails, I don't lose much. Heads, I win. If you keep repeating this over and over in your mindset, you'll be able to build a long-term portfolio. Because look, this has only been, it's 160 freaking days, right? So there was the potential where within 50 days, you did 1,200%. And that can change people's lives sometimes when it's a large enough piece of capital. And this is why we love venture capital, is that this was a heads I win, tails I don't lose much scenario. When it was at $2 and we were making our entries, it could only go down so much. And it went up an extraordinary amount, and now we're reaccumulating. I think Avalanche, actually pretty much anywhere in this range, is probably a good price. I'm going to start averaging down here as we see. But really before I add more entries, because I did take a hit on both Avalanche and Serum, because I doubled down a little late into the game on those two, I'm waiting for Bitcoin to kind of lead the way and share that. So we want to go back with heads I win, tails I don't lose much, or rather maybe even again for the newbie, start with tails I don't lose much. It's a much clearer guidance. If you start with heads I win, you may actually become too focused on, hey, if heads I win and it goes to here, I'll make this much money. This is usually how the average and beginner investor starts to kind of lose out on the short time frame. Our friends at Energy, I couldn't find an Energy to USDT, which would probably be a bit nicer here. I just like the USDT charts better at this moment, because even Bitcoin is in a, let's say, a volatile state. Energy actually added some really cool new features to their ecosystem. They're building Energy Swap. So Energy Swap is, again, another form of Uniswap, where you can go and you can trade decentralized very fast and very cheap as well. So definitely check those out. I think the links, if they're not in the down below, they will be by the time I post this video. So for all of you that are on the video right now, I apologize. I'm still waiting to update those as well. Let's see here. where are we? I want to make sure we're actually live. Did we go live? I'm not even sure if we went live. Let's take a look here. In the meantime, remember to follow us on the social media channel and the links down below. We really appreciate all your guys' support. It makes the world a difference. I'm just going to click on this. Yeah, okay, we're live. Yeah, we're live still. Aren't we? Okay, cool. Yeah, we are live. Someone said live for some reason. Yeah, remember to follow us on the social media links down below. Really appreciate all your guys' support. We're going to leave it at that for today. I'm just gearing up to travel, so this last week was a bit of a write-off. This next week, we're recording a few podcasts, and I'll start doing live updates while we're traveling more and more. And by the way, just for Human Healer, if you keep shilling Hex in the chats, we'll just block you. Because if that's all you type about, like, it's not, nobody likes that. Not one single person will appreciate that. So if you feel like spamming in the comments, we will be usually fairly quick to ban you, no matter, even if you're saying valuable things. So don't. Anyways, give us a thumbs up if you like this content. Thank you all for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. This is T with the Arcane Bear, and we will see you guys again on the next episode. Bam. Oh, wait. You guys want music. Okay, hold on. You guys wanted music. We'll finalize with just a little bit of flute because I won't be able to travel with it. And it's such a beautiful day. I almost wish I could just move the microphone and the camera outside and play the flute out there because of how beautiful it is. But we'll finalize with a little bit of native flute because you guys love this stuff so much. Anyways, Steve with the Arcane Bear, thank you all for joining us. I love that you guys enjoy that flute. I'll have to buy another one when I land in Bali, just so I have a way to play music with you guys. I'm really looking forward to my trip, and I'm also kind of scared shitless to be going. I have such a beautiful place to be staying. I'm part of me is arguing, like, why are you leaving? Like, you live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. Like, do-da-do-da-da-da-da. Like, look at this. Why would I want to leave this? What are you doing, Tio? Why? Why leave? Oh my god. Anyways, but apparently I'm going to try to leave. I don't know. I can still cancel my flight. I could still change it all. I could just click cancel right now. I don't know. Anyways, thank you guys. I appreciate the support. I'll speak again soon.